Ring ring, hello. That's right. It's Boss Merle Mobile back again with Splash Show Power Rankings, and of course, I have the two boys in the lab, the two analysts, the researchers, putting all the numbers together, giving you guys some goated content this season in Season 6 of King's Court. We have Mr. Cardinals29, captain of the Magic Guard.
Hello.
And then we have Mr. Loker from New York. Yeah, I did it again.
Nice
What's up,
intro,
guys?
man.
Loker of the Big Apple.
Yep.
Putting together
Big
the
Apple.
content for you guys.
All right. If you've seen the wave pool video, then you know the deal. Teams are a bit weaker this season. Unlike wave pool, and especially unlike last season, we don't really feel like there's any clear number one super OP teams. So, and just like before, we're taking consideration into not only team strength, but also how you played week one. So, and again, no week two changes. So, only week one power rankings. Don't forget that. But with that said, we can just jump right into it and get into our first team overall, who is going to be USALA. So, with this team, I will say, we all thought, had some pretty good play in the actual match.
Yeah, play was good. That is worth mentioning, despite the placement.
I had a lot of good plays and a lot of good moments. Unfortunately, did get 0-2 despite that fact, and I do think that just is a testament to roster construction here, because it's just going to be a lot of work to compete with these other rosters in the league, even with very good play. And it just, these monsters don't really work super well together, in our opinion. Cresselia is doing all of the lifting on defense, which is not great. Once that Mon dies, the team is falling apart to like any fast Scarfer. The hazard control is horrendous, which is not what you want to see on a team with Iron Bundle, and especially Ogrepaw and Hearthflame. That Mon is pretty much only a designated lead, is what it feels like, because Kamala is just not going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, I think we're also kind of overkilled on speed here too. It's another one like one of the other teams we talked about in the other league. The top three are just almost like too fast, that we're like wasting speed tiers. And that kind of what it leads to is what you brought up. We have Cresselia as our only defensive piece, truly defensive piece on this lineup, which just makes the whole roster feel weird. But my one biggest issue is what you said. We are playing a Hearthflame and Bundle team with no hazard control, and that to me is the cardinal sin. You just can't do that. We have Kamala, but that's not. But we have to get out of this like low tier spinner. I'm not sure what the recommendation would be at this point based on the current board, but we just have to get out of that. But I do want to mention again, despite the 14 placement across the board, the play was good this week. Better than the team is constructed, and I think that goes to show with the 0-2 performance.
All right. Well, don't want to rattle on too much, so let's just move on to our number 13, Reggie Gigas. Spearheaded by this Urshifu Rapid Strike.
Traded for the Urshifu Rapid Strike from resident league owner Boss Merrill.
Yeah.
That's the art of the deal, baby.
For what it's worth, I do think it works pretty well, especially with that Ogrepaw.
Yeah, actually,
these top threes is great. These are all fantastic. Well, I'm not super high on Urshifu, but I think you have.
But I think Urshifu does do well with these other two guys.
It does work well here, and you do have two of the best Dukes on the draft board. So that's a great start. Cornerstone grade on any team, and
And Lando is one of the best, or maybe the best ground type in the format. True ground type besides Tusk.
Between Pawn and Urshifu and Reggie Drago, this team is insanely hard to switch into. And Urshifu does pressure some fairy types, depending on the team structure, for that Reggie Drago. So that can be a bonus. Although it tends to pressure bulky water types more, which is not what Draco would like. That being said,
there's some big issues as well on this team.
It kind of starts to fall apart around this mid-tier. Grimmsnarl and Tentacruel are really built for hyper offense, in my opinion. Tentacruel is great at getting like one spin and Toxicking something, which is fantastic on hyper offense. And Grimmsnarl is obviously homeless outside of HO. But then we just have mons like Skeleturge.
You have this guy in the middle who just has again, absolutely no place on this roster to me.
Yeah,
It just
he's got to go. I know we said, like the power rankings are based on this week 1, but he did get dropped, so that is a good place to start.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good start. Also, I don't know what he got dropped for, and we're not going to talk about week 2 changes. But one thing we've noticed with the week 1 team is the speed tiers feel kind of predictable and locked because Ogerpon's locked at 110. So it feels like we're kind of in a weird spot where we can get played around our top speed tiers. We're forced to like run Scarf on some things we probably don't want to run Scarf on in this current iteration. So it just doesn't feel like. I mean, I'm happy. I mean, we can move on. Skeletor just dropped. Rejoice. Everybody.
I do want to play a tiny bit of devil's advocate before we move on here. In his top end speed tiers, they're all kind of like mid to like high speed tiers, like not ultra high or anything. But he does have sticky webs, and I think sticky webs actually fits really, really well with the squad. He just doesn't have like a solid ghost type to like, take advantage of that. Which he did have Skeletors, but Skeletor just like, you know.
Skeletor's is just not good enough without Terra. I think it doesn't even matter what team it's on.
I think webs with Urshifu is cute. It's something we'll see later on. But it's like a cute idea, you know.
Okay.
It's something we'll see later on.
It's not in a bad way because
it's good. I don't think
biggest weakness is its speed tier.
Yeah, I don't think it's something you should be relying upon though. That's where I start to think it falls
apart. This team just doesn't have options outside of sticky web, which makes it exploitable. Any team that you in draft that is locked into one style of play or one. If it always has to lead, or it just any way you get locked into it, it's never a good thing. I think in draft being predictable.
There's some great HO pieces here. So
with
that being said, these are the only 2 teams that we have in this D tier. So we're gonna be moving right into our C tier with the Distortion World Disciples coming in hot. Duke, by the way. Big fat Enamorous taking up a Duke slot up there.
Again, we can rejoice. We're not talking about week 2 changes, but it's gone.
But it is gone.
Rejoice.
So great start. I do think this team massively lost the trade with that Ogerpon slot that was in there before.
That Ogerpon slot was a much needed physical breaker in my opinion.
Great physical breaker, complements Greninja well in my opinion. I think this is a massive L in a trade, but there are still some great pieces here to look at. Greninja and Bolt are a fantastic pairing, and it has some really threatening sweepers, stuff like Gren and Revroom with Terra especially, but also Crocodile are all great win conditions. It is a little tough to get there though, especially on weeks where Raging Bolt is not so great.
Yeah, in a week where Raging Bolt can't effectively break anything, it feels kind of hard to get. Like, Greninja can always threaten the sweep, but we have to get things within Greninja range, because Greninja can't, if it's running Battle Bond, it's not killing things from full HP unless you're in a good spot, like, unless you're in, like, Ice Beam spot where it's just broken into something, or, like, a Hydro Pump spot. So you need to be able to get things low enough to be able to get there, and I see there's a lack of ability. It almost feels like we're too much on the sweeper train. We're too Greninja and Revroom. We got like too many options for these sweepers and not enough options for actually getting their team low enough to get the sweepers there. And that's something I think he saw in my matchup. He couldn't, to be fair, when you have 4 different answers to sweepers between unaware and double multi-scale, it's hard to sweep in general, but it always felt like he didn't have the damage down on my Pokemon in order to get me to the spot where he could get the sweep off.
Yeah. Big shout out to Hitmonchan though. It did come in and it did some pretty good work despite the O2.
It did. It beat the one of the best Terra captains in the game. It absolutely demolished my Primarina. I did not expect it.
I laughed, but that thing put work in.
We made so many jokes about that Mon, and it actually looked good. So shout out to that. Shout out to the dual low point spinners. Maybe that's the way it's meant to be.
Hey, at least you have 2 of them, you know?
Yep. Options.
Moving on, we have Explorers Guild rookies. This is, I think, one of the main victims of a rough start, and I think that's
gotta bring up that you ranked him 6th. It's looking like a sore thumb with our rankings.
That is
12 and you're
far out there, bro.
But hear me out.
Give us an explanation.
It was a rough week, but I still am a heavy believer in this player, and I think the roster is good. You know. A rough schedule this week, but I do think this team will bounce back, and that is for a couple reasons. All right, this team is insanely hard to break. Between Zapdos and Terra Hydrapple and Petrun and Florges especially, it's super hard to break through this team. So that being said, It is.
Yeah, I have a devil's advocate point to that.
Yeah, you can go.
How do we win? What do we?
How
What
do
do
we stack hazards, bro. We stack hazards.
Okay, and we do have a good anti-spin. No, but that's I'm joking, of course. But my biggest question with this team is, yeah, we have a billion switches and we're so bulky, but I find it kind of weird to actually win the game. We have like more. We have Zapdos, Hydrapple, Pecharunt, even Tauros and Florges, who all feel like generally defensive pieces.
I
that
will
come
push
into
back on that. I think Terra Hydrapple is a fantastic breaker with Nasty Plot sets.
It is, because it's gonna get one Nasty Plot off.
Yeah, because it's getting many Nasty Plots off throughout an entire game.
Yeah. Yeah. And it got Regenerator, and it can break and then come back out and do it again and whatever. But who would you say is like the late game?
It does have to be like
finisher.
something like Nasty Plot Dio Speed, which is
because nothing
not,
else. I don't think there's another option, right? I mean,
yeah,
unless
it is
some
kind
weird
of, it is
Samurott
kind of
H set.
pigeonholed into that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is a bit rough. And also, if there's any reliable defogger, this team does get a lot worse.
Yep, and I know we talked about it, but what is Berserker doing on this team? What are we doing?
What do you know about Berserker?
I don't know enough. Apparently,
I'm not
I don't
gonna.
know.
He's got that steely spirit, bro.
I'm
Look
not
at
gonna
the way
defend
he's staring at me, man. He's got to go.
Yeah,
Get him
I
out
got
of
it.
here. He's a fucking hazard.
Let's move on, bro. I can't look at him, bro. Oh, good, man. But next up, we do have the untitled
Resident Sun.
Ducklet team. Yes, the Resident Sun team, and I think one it's pretty well constructed. If you just
Look
blur
at
out
the
the
top
bottom
specs.
half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top. Yeah.
Because I mean, Hatterene, fantastic Sun piece. Versatile threats, all hard to switch into. Meowscarada, great speed tier, great supporting threat. And then you get down here, and our ground type is Rhyperior. I know I talked about this in the Wave Pool video, but when you have something like Lilligant Hisui, you're really comfortable tearing it every game. So why on earth would we pair it with a ground type who also needs to Terra?
What are the two teams that have Rhyperior should not have them?
I think the Mon is great, but you just can't pair it with these Terra Hogs. Like it just doesn't work.
Lilligant needs to Terra effectively every week in order to actually do its job successfully and efficiently.
Mm-hmm. And our Squires are also it's pretty useless.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I was going to say, bro. Hold on, let me think of it for a second.
Yeah, go ahead. You got this, and then I'll talk about something I want to talk about. But go ahead.
I mean, Red Giant said for your after here for fun, bro. They're holding up the fucking dude, stop, bro.
I'm sorry.
I didn't get into it. They're holding up Go Team and they're fucking walking around with the mini skirts on, bro. It's not looking great, bro.
Red Giant said mini skirt is crazy.
But they're here literally for fun. Triggeraf, I mean, it's just Hatterene Light on this team. It's not really doing much.
Yeah, no, they both seem like they serve pretty much no purpose to me.
Yeah.
One thing I want to highlight is Chi-Yu again, and I talked about this in the last video as well. But Chi-Yu, it looks really good in this Duke spot. I think when it's not a Monarch, I think it might actually be, in my opinion so far, and we'll see how it shapes up the rest of the season, might be one of the biggest skills in the draft, because I don't think a lot of people were talking about Chi-Yu as being a powerhouse, and it looks, especially on the Sun team, even in the other league, it looks good. It looks really good as a Duke spot. But other than that, I mean, the top 3, top 6 up to Torkoal are great. Just Rhyperior needs to move, and the other two are, like you said, are just here for fun.
An unfortunate side effect of this kind of roster construction is that into any opposing weather or any weather disruption, this roster is going to fall apart pretty quick. So that's something.
Yeah, we have no recourse because our bottom 3 are
so all in on Sun.
Yeah, which is not, as I said in the write-up that we did, is not my style of team. I don't like being pigeonholed into doing one thing. I'm not saying it can't be successful. It just feels too limited to me, which is why it finds itself at the bottom, towards the bottom of our list.
Yeah, I think a draft, especially because people are going to note you play every week, having a non-Sun mode is very key to a Sun team.
Yeah, you played
honestly.
Sun, and you did have a non-Sun mode. There were weeks that you won because you had the option to take out Sun.
Sometimes you didn't even bring Torkoal, and I just can't imagine this team ever leaving Torkoal. So
I agree.
Which makes the team builder for your opponents so easy. Like we were talking about, when you look at a team and you're not scared of it, that is when your team is not looking as good. And this is a team that I would go into the team builder knowing exactly what I want to build against.
Very, very clear weakness to this team. Next up, rounding out the C tier, we have a team very near and dear to my heart. But I won't blather on about it. I'll let you guys take it over.
He said, "Ooh."
Go ahead, Big Rex. Why don't you take this one?
I think you're the. I guess I'll take it. It was my matchup. I just say you're the one that has it lower than okay.
No, I was gonna let you go because you have the matchup this week, so you prepped against it.
I actually did have a hard time, at least theory crafting in the builder against this team. Then again, I think personally I benefit more from like actually playing the game and like mocking and sitting in the builder for like 2 hours. But against this team, things that like jumped out at me, Wo-Chien is so annoying. I mean, the whole team's annoying. That's what it's built around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's its whole gimmick is being annoying.
It's being annoying, and it does a really good job of that. Except for the fact that like it is kind of like it's a stall team, but it is kind of like still not the hardest to break through, at least for me personally. I had Iron Treads and Booster Attack, and it just 1v6 the team if Slitherwing wasn't like there and available, and having Slitherwing as your ground resist. I mean,
not always the best thing.
Yeah.
I called it in our notes. I wrote it's like almost like mega bulky offense. Like we're not even stall because like you said we can't live the way we want to, but we're also not even quite like bulky offense. We're like somewhere in between stall and bulky offense, and that's not really two styles I think your team wants to be in between. So
yeah,
I think I also want to say player strength is a big reason why I think that we're not in the D tier. I would say for this as far as team roster construction.
I think this team is pretty dog shit, if I'm being honest. And the only reason I'm not scraping the bottom of the barrel is because I'm coming off a championship and because I tied with a like a much higher.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. I mean, we'll see later in the list. Boss Merrill is a highly ranked team, so taking 1-1 off that is impressive. And I also just saying we're not talking about week 2, but I heard a rumor where we might be leaning more into the offense coming up.
Or so I've heard. But
so who knows what could happen?
Knows
Anything could happen. I heard some people have been whispering things to me.
Champ's
so
making some calls, bro. He's making some calls,
you already know, man. But with that being said, that is going
B-tier.
to be our B tier. Yes, our top 8, starting off with Jamark's Peloton Mafia, a staple of the league for so long.
Oh my god, bro, we gotta talk about your ranking here, man.
yeah, that's the first thing we gotta bring up.
Okay.
You are a hater.
Let me just
let's see what we got.
Whoa, all good. Let me just start off. I do like some points to this team.
Yeah, look at this guy trying to lap it up, bro.
I'm trying to compliment Sandwich, bro. For one, okay, it is really hard to get to recover momentum against this team. There's so many hard-hitting threats that are also fantastic pivots, and we also have one of the best slow pivots in the game in Dio Speed, like dedicated slow pivots. In between things like Cinderace and Scizor and Thundurus, it is really hard to break their offensive momentum. So
yeah, I
that
agree.
being said, when you have like a pivot-centric team like this that hits hard, I just don't think we need more reliable hazard control than Cinderace and
We have 3 guys and none of them want to do it.
Yeah, we have 3 guys, Scizor, Cinderace, and Girder, and none of them are particularly appealing, to be honest. So I do think that's kind of hampering this team a little bit. That being said, this team is majorly threatening, and it has a lot of hard-hitting guys. I'm a huge Cinderace fan. I like it with
I'm a huge
better...
Garchomp and Scizor guy, too. Yeah. I will say, I just feel like Necrozma is not great, and I will say it till I'm not a Necrozma guy, I understand, but I just don't feel like it is the best pick that could be at this spot. And to that point, you won 1 this week. Necrozma wasn't there, so for what it's worth, Necrozma didn't even show up this week. So first pick of the draft, he talked about it. I'm just saying I'm not a Necrozma guy, and I don't see the vision here.
I'd say I rated it the highest out of all of us. I just wanted to say, like, I really like this team. I like simple things that hit hard. That's why I like this team.
It does hit hard.
That's what this thing's got. So
fair enough.
We're all besides cards. The other three of us were
pretty
6, 7, 8. So
we
I mean, it's still a good team. B tier team. You're well in the mix. So
I don't know, man. It's Jamark, man. He'll still make playoffs. Like
yeah, he'll be there. He'll be there.
I'll see you then, man. But
yep.
Our other B tier team, only 2 rounding out the B tier. So a pretty stacked A tier. What it looks like. We have Triple Tactics Typhlosion back again. I mean, this guy just runs the same team every season.
I mean, does this guy taken the same like is he a Dondozo every season?
I not every season. It's close, but I mean, if it ain't
dropped
broke,
out one season,
if
two
it ain't
seasons,
broke,
yeah.
don't fix it. To be honest,
Yeah.
This team does work pretty well. Halucha Rillaboom is a pretty solid core.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
do believe in it more than like the traditional Sneasler core that we've seen. Feels
Yep. Lando standing up.
yeah, Lando standing up. This is a very similar team to a wave pool team with those three there.
Yeah.
So I mean, we already know it's going to be a great core. And Gouging Fire, bit of a boring mon, but it does work pretty well here. Great with
Yeah, we were
grassy
doing our
terrain.
prep. We talked about it, and I would at first I said I'm not really a Gouging Fire fan here on this team, and we talked about it for a second. I'm like, actually, it's kind of well positioned
Yeah,
here
it's
between like
pretty
the
good
grassy terrain, and the way we could switch around. It's a non-ice week dragon for your 2 ice week dukes, especially the 4 times week. So we have like, I actually kind of like it here, and the only thing I would say, I when we talked about it like multiple times about the Seleki Pokemon, it just kind of feels like fake to me. And we're another
Yeah.
team that has 3 hazard removals, but no one I feel like that really wants to do. I mean, I think this Meowscarada, or not Meowscarada, this Mousehold Pokemon is like pretty much super fraudulent in general.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Regieleki's fake, and then we're not defogging on Howlucha, so we're kind of no hazard removal, which is weird.
He did week 1. He actually did week 1.
Technically true.
Oh, he did? He switched something?
He
did.
Oh no, you're saying week 1
he
he
brought
defogged on
defog.
Howlucha?
Yeah.
Oh, on
Yeah.
Howlucha.
But like
Okay.
that's not really where we want to be. Like I feel like
Yeah,
that,
we're playing unburdened sweeping
yeah.
Howlucha with defog, but
Terracap,
it feels
like,
weird to me.
I don't know.
And also, I'll say it, Dondozo is fine. It's a fine
Yeah,
Pokemon.
this team does need a
but-
bulky water. So
Yeah, it does. But couldn't we have been Milotic or
Yeah, I just-
like something less exploitable in this spot?
that is something I didn't want to touch on. Looking at this team, any water type that has access to Ice Team looks like really like good into this team. Simply for the fact that like nothing wants to switch in and take that, even Dondozo, simply because like of its kind of like weak special
yeah, it's got
defense.
pretty weak special attack, a very weak
It-
special attack.
Does have a lot of HP to back that up. Then obviously AV
Don't leak my
must
strats,
come
bro.
in. My bad.
I'm ready to have Ice Beam.
That-
Prep for it.
And then obviously AV Muck will be there to like lap up whatever is left over, right? On the
Yeah.
special defensive side, but it still kind of hurts to like know that Muck is like coming into this water type most likely.
Yeah, I know Dozo's his guy. Like, I'm not gonna. It's not terrible. It's just to me, it's just a bad Pokemon. It's just not great.
yeah, it's not
Could
a
be
big
something
fan
else
of
and be better.
guy
He
in
does
general.
need the guy,
He
but
does need a water.
it could be better.
This team would look better. I think it would look better with Milotic, and it would definitely look better with something else in that Mousehold slot. But moving on,
Yeah,
we have
Mousehold
our
is fake.
first A tier team. To rounding out our top 6 here, we have the one and only Gear Defenders, another staple of the league. And this
Yep.
time he's sporting an Urshifu team. Like I said, backed up by Sticky Webs, which is a nice idea, but it is really well supported here.
Yeah, it is. I want to just say something before you go into it. I think both of the Urshifu teams, as much as I'm not an Urshifu guy, I think have built decent cores around them. Even like Gigas at the end of the list still had a pretty good core around the Pokemon. So maybe it's better than I gave it credit for.
Yeah, Slowking Galar, fantastic Urshifu partner. Great at getting him in, despite the bulk issue with Urshifu, and is also able to switch into pretty much any fairy type. It's going to be really hard for them to break G-King, making it an excellent Urshifu Dark partner. So we saw that yesterday even with Glowking switching in to fairy type Cresselia like dozens of times in that matchup.
And it's just unwinnable.
yeah.
It's just not a winnable spot.
Yeah, so great supportive cast here. One thing to note, the Terra Captains are like fine. They're not great though. Obviously, like Rabombi can Quiver Dance, and Azumarill is pretty good with threatening that belly
Yeah,
drum. But
They
like,
just don't
Yeah,
wow me.
they don't-
They're
they don't
they're
wow
just
me.
okay.
is
But one thing I do want to say, this guy is running the core that I was originally planning on running, which is Glowking and Mandibuzz. That core is really, really good together.
yeah,
I think. So,
they have big defensive complements, being both
Yeah.
a dark and a ghost resist for that Slowking Galar, and a ground immune.
and a
So,
ground immune.
yeah.
It's a very, very good combination. So, and it's a dark type that's neutral to bug as well. So, which is always good. Wait, is Glowking weak to bug or is poison resistant?
It's neutral.
It's neutral. Okay.
Yeah, it is
So they're both neutral to bug. So you have a psychic type and a dark type that are both neutral to bug, which is nice. for the U-turns and other pivots. But yeah, the team is well constructed. I like that we have a real like fairy type and like really two now, but we have a real switch in fairy type with Azumarill and have priority. And I think the team's well built. I like it a lot. It's good.
Yeah, solid team. And it supports Urshifu well. So coming in with our top 5, we're kicking it off with Sharp. Interesting voting, as you can see. I think.
Yeah,
crazy going
I
the
think-
fucking-
yeah.
God
So we got
damn.
we got some self-glazing going on, and
Hey, that's how you gotta be if you want to win chips, bro. I respect it.
and
man.
we have a big hater as well. We have a glazer and a
big
hater. So
hater. I wouldn't call it a big hater. I think this team
I
is
mean,
fine.
2 to
all
8's crazy, man. I mean, he thinks it's
It's
2.
kinda
I
crazy.
think it's just a bit of an over. Maybe I'm underrating a little. I think this is a bit of an overrate.
You had to balance it out. You saw
I
you
did,
saw
I
this
did.
too, and you had to balance it
I
out.
saw it
I
it
understand.
had to go in the middle of the pack where it belongs. 'Cause-
So let's talk about some good things. So the addition of Gallade and Duraludon, I think, are both pluses over Staraptor and Registeel, which I think is what it was before. They provide a good value steel type for what it's worth, and a very much needed breaker on this team as well for our late game sweepers. It was a 2-0 as another positive, but it was shaky, and it was also against our second to lowest rated team in the league. So not a perfect week, although it was a 2-0, and we'll take those. Mew is a premier Terra captain, expensive but worth it. And I think that's pretty much everything that I have on this card. Is there anything you wanted to add on this?
I mean, Mew is fantastic here. Is obviously one of the most threatening Terra captains in the league. The low error ranking, like 8 isn't that low, but relatively, has a lot to do with that kind of shaky play. I think there are some questionable decisions in the week 1, but still got it done in the end. I know Jeremy's a big fan of this core. I'm not the biggest fan of Alomomola Weezing, primarily because of Weezing. I think he's a bit exploitable. But I mean, it's comfort for him. He won a
Yeah,
championship.
he loves
on it,
Alomomola,
so,
man.
like, I'm not gonna question the method, you know.
Yeah, and he's got Tusk and he's got Moth, and he's got good value pieces all around. I'm not a huge fan of the defense. I'm not a huge fan of Weezing being a defensive core piece either. But you know what? He loves it, so maybe that too will stand. What do you think, Devin?
I do want to point out something that I just did notice about this team. Any psychic type or any fairy type that can get like a fairy/psychic move, any of ththose two combinations rips this team apart, excluding the Terras, obviously. Especially because our steel type isn't fairy resistant. So that is kind of a
Yeah, so
slight
that's
negative
why I
there.
told him Registeel. Originally, that's why when we were talking about it, I said Registeel might be better because it is a resist, and not a neutrality. But Duraludon, I think, is just a better Pokemon.
I think
unfortunately.
Registeel is far too passive on a team that already has Mola. and
Already
Weezing.
feels like
And it can
passive.
honestly
Yep.
use that special breaker for that Iron Monk. So,
Yep.
All right, that's fair.
yeah, that just about
but I
rounds
agree
out
with your
our
point.
thoughts on this team. I think, unless you guys have
Yeah.
anything else.
I think it's a solid team. Honestly.
No,
think it's
I think
team.
it looks. I think the changes made it look significantly better than when it was
Yeah.
drafted. I think we got a little lost in the draft, and I think this ended up being a much better version of the team just by a few changes.
It passes the eye test now for sure.
Yeah.
All right, our top 4, kicking it off. Cookin Yanma's Dean with the Ting Lu core, bit of a steal in the draft, and also supported by, I think the consensus number 2 Mon. I mean, number 2 or number 3 Iron Valiant.
Yeah, he got Iron Valiant. What was it at 4 or 5 or something like that? He got Valiant
something
lower than he
pretty
should
low.
have.
He got Valiant at 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
but,
steal.
I mean,
And Ting Lu on the back end on the next round. So
yeah, he really capitalized on it well. I think this is a fantastically constructed Iron Valiant roster. Terra Keldeo, super threatening, fantastic Iron Valiant partner. It really opens up the holes that Iron Valiant needs to get those endgame sweeps. And Metagross and Ting Lu are both great defensive switch-ins. Obviously, Ting Lu makes your hazard game great, along with that Sinistcha, making sure that hazards generally stay up. And
I think Sinistra fits a nice typing too.
yeah,
the Ghost and
the
Grass is a
natural
good
typing
typing.
of Sinistcha is pretty good.
You don't even need. I mean, Keldeo wants to Terra a lot, and Sinistra can, but it doesn't even need to a lot of weeks. It just has a good.
It can match up
typing in
fish. I
general.
think it's generally happy staying a grass ghost type, which is what you want.
Which is why
Yeah.
I'm happy with it on this team than I would be if it didn't want the Terra or if it was a different Terra captain. Because I don't think you want to Terra it every week on this team. Metagross is always kicking too. That's a mon I feel like is just always around and good and
Yeah.
pretty good, and people just don't talk about it that much anymore. Very good.
I honestly do feel like Metagross falls into this kind of like awkward spot in the draft where, much like Ayaka and Jirachi, just because of their typing, like they look good, but they don't feel good. And I feel like this team's gonna run into that a little bit, where he's gonna like be kind of hard pressed, not hard pressed, by any means. But it's gonna feel hard to bring Metagross some weeks over some other things.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that.
but the positive thing is I feel like he has a lot of options to bring over Metagross if it doesn't look good. Like we saw Quillfish do a lot of work.
Yeah.
Uxi's a great Pokemon.
Uxie, I
Belgold
think-
has his matchups.
I think Uxie is like the best value pick in the draft, like end stop.
Ooh,
So
big statement.
big statement. Whoa, take alert. But yeah,
It is great.
one thing I will say to that, Davin, Vaughn had this Iron Valiant Metagross core last season, and one thing that he has said was that Metagross was generally worse than he expected. So it can be
I've
hard
never
to
used
make
it,
work.
so I don't know. Maybe it is overrated. I always felt like it was good. It just never fit on my team. But that's exactly what you're saying though, because every time I think about Metagross, I'm like, ooh, do I really want the psychic typing?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do I
Yeah,
really
it
want
can
to
be
fit that? It's kind of slow. It doesn't. Yeah, whatever. So yeah, and the one other thing I want to bring up that's a negative, and again, we have him very highly ranked, but solo removal on Talonflame is kind of sus to me.
Yeah.
I used Talonflame last season, and I never felt like I wanted to ever be locked into defog. Part of my success with that mon, I felt like, came from the fact that it never had to bring defog. I could always go offensive, or I could go defensive and bring Roost. You always find yourself wanting an extra move when you bring defog. Feels like Talonflame needs like Roost to get Gale Wings back, or you need dual coverage, or you need another move or something. Like it always feels like you need something that's not defog. So it's a little bit sus.
Yeah, Talonflame just feels a little bit too much of a core mon for me to be comfortable, because that mon's a little suspicious. I don't know.
Yeah, too much weight on his shoulders to be a solo spinner.
Maybe
Or
just like a
solo.
Noiverse, like not chick.
we're not gonna harp on that point too long.
I'm joking,
Yeah,
I'm
just-
and for what it's worth, he won TTT as well. So
Yeah, but moving on to our top three, we have the Dragapult team. Surprise. But
I thought the mon is not weak.
the Mon is not weak. We can prove it
I
once and
don't
for all,
know.
guys.
I don't know, guys.
Just have to bring up again Duke, by the way. This is a team that traded away Enamorus and got Wellspring. Absolutely fleeced that trade. Wellspring is 10 times the Pokemon that Enamorus ever was. Also, this team, I feel like Ogerpon is pretty good on this team as well. I mean, I think it's a pretty cool guy in
Yeah.
general. I used it last
And
season.
he utilized it pretty well in this matchup, getting a solid.
He looked
2-0.
real.
Yeah,
He looked really good in the match. I watched.
yeah.
the whole
The
match.
play overall was pretty excellent. So
He's the winner
yeah.
from last season, so he's definitely coming in strong into the higher league.
Yeah, for sure. The low tiers on this team, specifically that Blastoise, Tinkaton, Mesprit, and even that Thunderous Therian.
And Dun this isn't great without Terra, but it's still. I mean, his
Yeah.
lower tiers are all great.
They're all
I would
really
say.
great, I think.
Besides,
I
you
know
know.
you're not a big Decidueye fan, which is fair. The
Bro,
mon's not
that
very
mon
good.
reeks,
yeah,
man.
dude, I can smell it
I-
over here, bro. Get rid of that mon,
Okay.
man. There's got to be something else.
I don't really like it either, but it is nice because it lets your Blastoise go on the offensive some weeks. So that's kind of its primary purpose in my mind.
Yeah, and I guess
yeah.
when you're on your lower tiers, you're usually looking for like matchup fishing. So maybe it's good enough to be here. I'm just a hater. I'll be honest. One thing I want to say is somehow King Goobit is like good here. Like,
Yeah, I like
actually
it as like a
looks
breaker
good.
rule because we already have pretty excellent cleaners. So like being able to switch in for things that threaten Dragapults make it feel better than I feel like other.
yeah, I
team
think it's
teams
cool
have
that
done
I'm
in the
seeing
past.
Goobit have success without having to be forced into that late game sweeping that's so exploitable in draft.
Yeah.
Could
So,
he even run Defiant some weeks too, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's not forced to do anything, and that's what makes it good. I think
Yeah.
it's really good.
Oh, yeah, we
really
could
good
get
on this
this
team. Better than I've
Last
seen.
time King Gambit wasn't forced to do anything, we got Stealth Rock's Thunderwave, bro.
okay, yeah, well, we
Sad.
don't have to talk. Well, we gotta move on fast,
I
bro. I'm
trust.
getting
I
nervous.
trust that fear will not do that. So
Hopefully,
I trust.
we can only hope,
Um,
man.
Yeah, we can only hope. Oh, who's this we have here?
Who
number
is
2?
this? Whoa. Is this Boss Merrill for chance? The one and only?
Might be.
Feeling like top
Cardinals
5?
number 1 ranked team.
Yeah, not even he ranked himself number 1, but I am a big fan of this team. Personally, I feel like it's great. Flexible mons. These all can do a great variety of things, and just from top to bottom, for the most part, one exception. It just feels like every mon is just like good quality mon. It's just there's no real hole in this roster, and they all work together. And yeah, they just work well together. Flygon.
Fleece the trade for Kirim, by the way. That Kirim is way better. I mean, I'm not saying the other team is bad on Reggie Giga's team, but Kirim is way better on this team than Urshifu was. Also, I want to say that I thought this team was really good coming out of the draft, and I feel like we've somehow managed to get better. I wasn't a huge fan of Reuniclus, and I think we upgraded big on that. Zarudu's a huge upgrade as well, and Conkeldurr, I think, is a very, very good Pokemon for what it's costed at, as well as our top 3 good core. I will say, I do think that Flygon is kind of a weak Pokemon in general, even with Terra. I feel like it doesn't do enough. And then, I know, Cards, you said that you kind of felt like Arcanine wasn't worth the tag of the premier captain.
Not a big Flygon fan. Also, I don't like Arcanine being our primary Terra captain. He's good, don't get me wrong. But just feels like it could be better used somewhere. But I do know.
I feel like he's more of a matchup fisher in general.
Well,
than he is.
He can be like a good defensive piece, but he's not super proactive unless Terra Normal is good. These are both issues that have been fixed in free agency, as far as I'm aware. So we won't harp on them for too long. Just know that this is a very solid roster. It feels like
I like Rotom pickup too, for what it's worth. I thought that was a really good low point guy to get on this team.
That's a nice role player to have on the squad, I think.
Yep, if you ever need it. Which you might not, because his top 6 are very good by themselves. So.
True.
But yeah.
True.
Anything you want to say on your team?
Yeah, this is your roster.
I'm very happy with it. I'll say that was true.
We beat week 0, I think. Like, the team is better.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
No, we did. We did. I don't care what you say. We made better changes, and for that, it is worth making changes in week 0 if you're doing things with a brain and not just doing things for fun.
Congrats
That's
on
true.
beating the case.
You're right. But as it currently stands, I have 0 points left going into the year. I won.
Let's just move on.
But I got bullet holes in my body, bro. I don't know.
Oh my god. Well, staying true to the theme, teams near and dear to our heart, we have the team of the last person in this call, the Big Appletons, and I think you've come out of this draft as probably the premier winner. I mean, I know I voted you number 2. Like I said before, there's not like a clear standout team in my opinion, so I definitely think this has an argument for number 1. You have, like I said in the previous video, Primarina I think is one of the strongest Terra captains in the league, and you have a top 3 that really work well together. Dragonite and Weavile both supported really well by Terapagos, and it's just hard to play against this team. You have a good, solid defensive core that defensively at least support each other well, and it's really hard to like get off a strong sweep against this team between Clodsire and Terapagos and all the priority. And we did see that against Temple's strong sweepers in the first week. And yeah, it's pretty solid overall. My main flaw with this team does lie in this Skarmory and Clodsire pairing, though. While they do cover matchups defensively well, they're both pretty passive. They don't pivot out, and they don't really get momentum back in your favor. So it can be hard if you're set on the back foot to get that momentum back. Meaning, like, and it's also a core very susceptible to things like taunt. So teams that are ready and prepared to play the game into Clodsire and Skarmory could honestly work this defensive core pretty hard.
Yeah, so the one thing I will say is I feel like I have enough quality around the other 5. I mean, Serena and Palmont, newsflash, Palmont's not on the team anymore. It's now Tauros Water, but those 2 guys are kind of more role players. But the other 5, Chandelure, top 3, and Primarina, I feel like all can come in weeks and kind of substitute. Like only one of the 2 defensive passive pieces can come, and that's what we saw last week where one of them didn't come. So I think that there is some ways to move around that, but I do think that the other thing I will say is I feel like Clodsire as your primary ground type can be a little bit weak too. That's one thing I have been a little nervous about because getting an Earthquake on Clodsire is still going to hit, but it's not going to hit like, Lando standing up would if I had that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it's not really the premier ground type that you're looking to center your draft around. It's fine. It's, like, acceptable.
That's why we call him the 9 to 5.
Amen.
Because that's what he's doing.
He clocks in, clocks out. But
clocks in, clocks out.
Something I do want to note with this team as well is that we're a little bit reliant on boots in our top 3. We do have great hazard clear, don't get me wrong, but it feels like necessary to have boots almost always just because 25% Weavile, 25% Dragonite plus multi-scale, and then obviously the big one on Turtle Terry with its multi-scale-like ability. I forget the name of it right now. But, so I think in terms of like flexibility, those 3 are a little bit rigid in what they kind of want to bring to against Team of the Builder. But
I
mean,
would
believe it or
I would
not,
actually argue that
you didn't bring boots on either of them.
I would argue that pretty much
Really?
only Turtle Terry is locked into boots because he's such a reliable spinner that you can honestly support Weavile and Dragonite with spin like very reliable.
Yeah, and I think honestly, even if Dragonite does have to go boots in a certain matchup, I think Dragonite is like just fine with being boots if
He's
it needs
a good
to be.
defensive piece with Roost and T-Wave. So like
That being said, he is kind of relying on this team to be more of an offensive piece than a defensive piece because I already have so many defensive pieces.
Yeah.
But he can be boots, and if he's not, Terapagos, I think, does a great job of being able to clear the way at least once for him to get in with multi-scale and either get a boost or a strong move off. And Weavile can bring boots every week and be happy if it wants to. So, but yeah, no, I get that point. I think, like I said, I put myself number 1. But I truly think that any of the top 4 or 5 teams, probably the top 4, Boss Merrill, Appletons, Rotom Unwashed, and Cooking Yanmas are all, in my opinion, the top echelon of teams in the league right now as far as roster construction.
I agree with that.
I would agree.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, great roster overall. That just about wraps up everything we have here today. I will show the final voting here real quick before we wrap up. But yeah, if you have watched this far, thank you very much. It's very appreciated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that jazz. I said it this time, Devin. You happy?
Yeah, hey, drop a motherfucking comment down too, baby.
Yeah. For real though, let us know if you like this style. I think we're probably going to come back and do some sort of other power rankings probably towards the middle of the season, not every week, but towards the middle of the season. And then one going into playoffs is the plan right now. But if you have any feedback or anything about the style of video or what we covered, let us know so we can always be improving as well.
All right. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.